What is up, y'all? My name is Robert Donaldson, and today I am joined by my buddy, CBB Nick. You can follow him on Twitter at CBB Nick. And I am Robert Donaldson, obviously, and you can follow me at RobDFB. And like we've been kind of doing as far as this series goes, just going through all the conference tournaments. And I'm going to plan to have one for every single conference tournament as far as a preview goes, as far as what I'm placing for futures bets. And I have my buddy, obviously, Nick, here to help me out with the Horizon League in this episode. This is one of those conferences that, like the Sun Belt, this is one of those parity heavy type conferences where we could see a lot of upsets. We could see a lot of different winners picked. And the format for this conference is really interesting because it's not just a formulaic bracket. You win, you play this team automatically. They do it kind of like the NFL playoff style, where you have the lowest seed remaining plays the highest seed. Then you have the second lowest play the second highest, and so on and so forth. And to give you guys an idea, there is no home court advantage in this conference tournament. All matchups are going to be played in Indiana Farmers Coliseum in Indianapolis, Indiana. And last year, this tournament played pretty chalk, all the way outside of a 10-7 upset, up to the semifinals, where both the 3 seed Northern Kentucky and number 4 seed Wright State teams, they both won their matchup and upset the 1 and 2 seeds. And Wright State, the number 4 seed that year, would go on to win Horizon. And it was a fun tournament. There was a lot of games that could have broke a lot of different ways, but this is again a wide open league, even more so this year, I'd say, just based on the cluster we have at the top. And so let's go take a look here at the top of the bracket. And we have number 6, Robert Morris, taking on 11 seeded IUPUI. This is a weird matchup because Robert Morris recently in the past week just beat Youngstown State, the number 1 seeded team in this conference tournament. They also lost to the team they're currently playing in the first round in IUPUI, and it wasn't relatively close as far as who was in control of that game. So Nick, I'll throw it to you. Out of this 6-11 Robert Morris IUPUI matchup, who do you have advancing to the quarterfinals?
Yeah, listen, IUPUI, it might be doing something over there. But no, I'm gonna go with Robert Morris. I think IUPUI, what's the saying? A blind squirrel always finds a nut once in a while, or a broken clock is right twice a day, something like that. I think IUPUI, that's their situation. I don't think those wins, truly mean that much. So I think Robert Morris is just a better team. I think IUPUI is very, very bad. So I'll just go with the chalk and take the 6 seed.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And also, I do actually want to make one amendment. So the first round and the quarterfinals are actually played on campus sites. So the highest seeding team is actually going to have home court advantage, and then the semifinals on is going to be in Indianapolis. But yeah, in that first matchup between Robert Morris and IUPUI, I am taking Robert Morris, and I'll also lay the spread or whatever it is in that game. I promise you, I that will be a bet from me, unless it's something ridiculous like -20 or something like that. But as we move down this first round, we have again a sneaky team as far as number 7 Wright State taking on Green Bay. Wright State is one of those teams that started slow in conference play, but as of late really turned it up, gave a lot of great teams ball games, could have snuck even some more wins out and potentially made it onto that first round bye line. In this matchup, who are you liking to advance to the quarterfinals, Nick?
Yeah, I've been on the bad side of some Green Bay games actually, where they actually beat Milwaukee outright on that game. But I don't think they're gonna take down Wright State. I think they're gonna get the job done. They're the better team. Green Bay, while they I think are a step up from IUPUI, it's not saying much. I think Wright State's gonna get the stub here.
100% agree. I am on Wright State to advance to the quarterfinals there. And then we actually have a game that I think we potentially might have differing opinions on. We have number 8 seed Detroit Mercy taking on number 9 seeded Purdue Fort Wayne. Who do you have advancing to the quarterfinals out of that matchup?
Yeah, the way you led that off, I guess we are going to be different. I'm going to go with Antoine Davis in Detroit. You said they got home court. I don't know if that even plays a factor because if you've seen Detroit's home court, it looks like middle school. But They have faced off against each other this year. Obviously, their last matchup was 85-52 Detroit. They held them to 52 points. I don't think that will happen again quite like that. But I'm going to go with a team that maybe gets behind Antoine Davis as a little last, thank you for carrying them and dragging them behind him throughout this season. So yeah, I think they'll get the dub. It won't be a thrashing like the last one, but they'll move on.
Yeah, what a tragic career. He's one of those guys that I would have liked to see potentially transfer, utilize the transfer portal, and potentially go somewhere a little bit more exciting and a little bit more um, playable in the tournament potentially with more potential there. But I am gonna have him sadly end his career in the first round of this bracket. I'm gonna take Purdue Fort Wayne. Listen, Purdue Fort Wayne is a team that has a lot of athleticism at the guard spots. They can really get boards. They have a balanced team overall. They had some really terrible second half collapses in this season where they could have beaten teams like Youngstown State. They could have had another win over Cleveland State, and they just for whatever reason blew double digit leads in those ball games. I think they have a lot of potential, so I am going to take them to advance to the quarterfinals here. And this is kind of where it gets interesting. So I'm going to put the onus on you, Nick, to kind of keep track of which matchups you have where, just because we do have to have a weird kind of formulaic thing here. But the first one we're gonna have the same as far as the 8-9, whoever comes out of that playing Youngstown State. So at the top of this bracket, you have Youngstown State taking on Detroit Mercy. Who do you see advancing to the semifinals out of that matchup?
You got to go with the Penguins. I think this team is not maybe not by miles ahead of everyone else in the conference, but they are definitely, in my opinion, the best team. I think they'll be able to handle either anyone who comes in this first round. Both Detroit Mercy and Purdue Fort Wayne don't have that good of defenses, and Youngstown State's offense is electric. So I'll take the Penguins to move on.
This, if you guys have been watching our conference tournament videos so far, we have been playing a little bit chalk for the most part. This is where I'm actually going to make a bold move. I am going to take Purdue Fort Wayne to beat
Wow.
Youngstown State in the quarterfinals. And this was a matchup where I thought the Youngstown State, upon my initial look in, was just going to, maybe waltz their way to the championship at least. But then I started diving into it, and I'm starting to see these varying numbers on sports books where Youngstown State, they're not a clear odds on favor in comparison to a lot of these other conference leaders. And I think that kind of speaks to how open this bracket is this year in the Horizon League. So I am going to take the team with a lot of potential to upset Youngstown State in their first matchup of this conference tournament. And I'm going to take Purdue Fort Wayne to advance to the semifinals. I know that's going to be a polarizing one for you guys, but I'm telling you, I'm going to be betting that if that is the matchup, in fact, in the quarterfinals there. And as we kind of work our way down here, we have Milwaukee taking, and this will actually be the same one for us just because we picked the same winner in both of those other two matchups in the first round. Milwaukee is going to be taking on Wright State. So interesting matchup here. Milwaukee was a team that started off really fast and not in conference play, and then kind of tailed off, had some really ugly losses, and then finished strong to end the year with a win over Cleveland State. Nick, who are you seeing advancing to the semifinals out of that matchup there?
I think I have to go with Milwaukee. I've kind of been riding with them a little bit all year. I think they're a little bit undervalued in this conference as well. So I got them taking down Wright State.
I like it. Yep, and I'm also going chalk there, but also I could definitely see this being a ball game. I I
Yes, for
I've been
sure.
kind of on the side of Milwaukee being a little bit overrated, and they did pick up some wins that I can't really explain from my overrated perspective, but I do think that could definitely be a ball game just because of the underseeded factor actually of Wright State more than Milwaukee being an overrated ball club there.
I think
Um,
some of their losses too, sorry to interrupt.
oh,
I
they're
think
good.
some of their losses too were like pretty bad. Like they lost to Oakland by 22 points. They actually did lose to Wright State, halfway throughout the year. And then obviously that Green Bay loss like is unacceptable. Like you should never have a close game with Green Bay if your expectations are to be this good in the conference because Green Bay just like isn't a real team.
Mhm.
So their losses are definitely very bad and they've had close wins. I just think maybe come conference tournament time they step it up a notch.
Yeah, and I'd say that's more than fair of a take. And then as we kind of work our way down to that third quarterfinals matchup, we have number 3 seeded Cleveland State taking on Robert Morris. Another, again, all of these matchups have the ability to be really fun or poised to be really fun just because of how tight this conference has been all season long. But who do you have advancing out of that one to the semifinal round?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like these teams are not separated by much of a gap. So to see, a Robert Morris Cleveland State like upset while, the 6 seed could win, it's really not that big of an upset. I think a lot of these spreads in these games are going to be very tight. But with that being said, I will take Cleveland State to move on. I don't know if Robert Morris can keep that, momentum up of beating, getting these big wins that they've had. I don't know if they can carry it on or if that was just like a fluke type of win where they beat Youngstown by 20 something points. So I'll go with Cleveland State.
Yep, yeah, and this is one that I kind of battled as far as I had to look in a little bit more deeper, a little deeper than I thought I would have to. But yeah, I did end up on the same side of you. I went into Cleveland State advancing the semifinal round, and then as we advance to the final quarterfinal matchup, we have the teams that picked up sort of a bye out of that first round. We have the 4 seeded Northern Kentucky Colonels taking on number 5 Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Interesting couple teams here just because they are loaded with talent and they've had a lot of mixed results over conference play action. Where are you leaning? Who do you see coming out of this matchup to make the semifinals?
Yeah, this is another going to be a good one because these teams are don't play any defense. And Northern Kentucky, I've been keeping my eye on them because they've been coming down the stretch, and I've actually been betting against them. They had a close win over Detroit, and I think Northern Kentucky can squeak out a win here. Just taking advantage of Oakland's bad defense. Like Oakland, I think is bottom 340 or bottom 320 in defending the three, and then an overall defense. In general. So I think Northern Kentucky's offense is definitely capable of just taking advantage of that and scoring some points on them.
Yep, I'm in the same boat again with you there. I like Northern Kentucky to win that one. Really wanted to buy this Oakland team all the way from the outset this season, but they don't play defense. They play sort of that AAU style basketball of just running up and down the court, throwing up jump shots, hurried layups. Not a lot of methodical offense and very little defense. So yeah, I'm also going to take Northern Kentucky to advance there. And then as we make it to the semifinal round, at the very top, we are going to have. Well, it's going to be a little bit different for both of us here, just because I did pick that upset with the Youngstown State losing to Purdue Fort Wayne. So in this one, we both are going to have Milwaukee, and they're going to be taking on. Let me see here. So for me, it's actually going to be Milwaukee versus Purdue Fort Wayne, and just because I'm going to let you figure out who is in that matchup for you, I'm going to pick um I'm gonna pick Purdue Fort Wayne to once again pull an upset here. I think they are actually the better team in comparison to Milwaukee. I think if this is the draw that they get, I think this is very favorable to Purdue Fort Wayne to pull another upset. So I will actually have Purdue Fort Wayne advancing to the championship game out of the Horizon League from that side of the bracket. And as far as that top side goes, who do you have in those two slots?
So this is the benefit of being chalk, as I have the 1 through 4 seeds all in the semifinal. So in my top half, I'll have Youngstown versus Northern Kentucky. I think, God, I think I'm gonna actually take Northern Kentucky. Looking at it, I think this team is definitely capable of knocking off Youngstown State. Like I said earlier, these teams aren't separated by much. So even though Youngstown State's the 1 seed, I think the separation between 1 and 4 is a lot closer than maybe a lot. I'm sorry, a majority of conferences actually where you have that clear number 1 and then the number 4 is a big drop off. This conference isn't like that between any of these teams. So again, like I said, Northern Kentucky's offense is very good. Youngstown State's defense is a little bit better than their previous matchup versus Oakland, but it's not something that can't be taken advantage of. As we've seen, a team like Robert Morris is capable of beating them. So I think Northern Kentucky is going to show up, and I think they're going to knock the Penguins off.
All right. Okay. That would be a fun matchup to watch play out too. And again, this is a league that 1 through 8, maybe even 1 through 9. Actually, I would even say 1 through 9 is so tight, and you can kind of go any direction you please with those matchups. And as we kind of make our way down to the second side of it, I am going to have. Let's take a look here. I'm going to have Northern Kentucky going up against Cleveland State. And this is another one that I battled with when I was kind of making my futures bets, when I was picking who I wanted to advance in the bracket. And I landed on Cleveland State to beat Northern Kentucky here and make it to the championship game, to make a Cleveland State Purdue Fort Wayne championship game. I just think Cleveland State is balanced enough. I think that last year, as the one seed in this tournament before being knocked off by Wright State in a matchup that saw over 200 points scored, I think they're feeling a certain kind of way, especially with that game being decided by it was nail biting all the way to the finish. It really could have gone either way. So I am going to take Cleveland State to advance the championship game there. And who are you taking to advance to your championship game out of that bottom half?
I'm with you. I have Milwaukee versus Cleveland State, and I'm also going to go with Cleveland State. I think we've seen this Milwaukee team falter in spots where maybe they shouldn't, especially versus Green Bay and teams of these, those bottom two teams that we talked about are definitely way worse than the other, top 1 through 9. Like you said, Cleveland State is hungry to get back. They had their chance last year and they choked it away to Wright State, even though it was a great game. I think Cleveland State's offense is capable of, creating space. Their offense is capable of creating space against the Milwaukee defense, and they're going to take advantage of them. And they're going to face off for me against Northern Kentucky in the championship game.
I like it. I like it. And now we both have different matchups in our championship game, but one common factor, and that's Cleveland State. So you have Cleveland State going up against Milwaukee. I have Purdue Fort Wayne going up against Cleveland State. So who do you see in your matchup prevailing and becoming the Horizon League auto bid?
So I have Northern Kentucky versus Cleveland State. I know it's confusing because we have these a million different seeds. Um, this I love this conference because it's so hard because it feels like every game is like a coin flip because they're just so close in skill. I think I'm going to ride the wave of Northern Kentucky. I think they're just clicking. I think they're capable of beating, every team in this conference, and their offense is going to be able to, Cleveland State's defense isn't bad by any means. It's middle of the pack. I just think the higher powered offense is going to get it done. So I'll take Northern Kentucky to win it.
All right, all right. And as far as my matchup goes with Cleveland State and Purdue Fort Wayne, I am going to be taking Cleveland State to win this championship game. I think they present a lot of matchup difficulties per Purdue Fort Wayne team that leans a little bit too much on their guard play, and so I am going to take Cleveland State to win this Horizon League championship game and steal the auto bid there. And then as far as bets, and there's a lot of different future bets you can place in this conference. Where are you aiming? What did you place personally, and what are you potentially even thinking about placing here?
So I know I kind of trashed Milwaukee a bit going into it, but I think they have a lot of value to win. We were looking before. Milwaukee was plus 1100 on Bovada to win it. They actually, not while we were recording, knocked it down to plus 800, which it is on all of the books. So maybe they caught up. I still think at plus 800 they have value. I think there's a reason they're the number 2 seed. They are a good team. I just think at this bottom half of the bracket they'd have to go through Wright State and Cleveland State to get to the championship game.
Yeah.
So there's 2 tough matchups for them, but if you believe in them, plus 800 is a great number. I like Northern Kentucky to win it all at plus 350. I think that offense is very capable. Their toughest matchup that I think personally would be against Youngstown State in the semis. So if they can get past them, I think they should win the championship game. I think they're better than all the teams on the bottom half of the bracket. So Milwaukee plus 800 to win the conference, and then Northern Kentucky plus 350 is what I'm eyeing.
I like it. I like it a lot, and I actually have 4 different bets for the Horizon League in this one. Sprinkled a few of them, have some bigger bets on a couple, but I will lead it off with some of my more long shot picks. So I have a 0.25 units on Purdue Fort Wayne to make the championship game at plus 1600. I'm not going to take them to win the championship game just because I don't want to have too much invested in Purdue Fort Wayne, but I do think with the draw that they can get, they can definitely make it to the championship game at the very least. And then I'm going to drop another 0.25 units on Cleveland State to win the Horizon at plus 500 on FanDuel. Like I said, I think Cleveland State has the best draw out of that lower side of the bracket. And if they don't have to play Youngstown State, I think they are the second best team in this entire conference. So getting them in a plus 500, not too bad, not too shabby. And then the other bet that I'm going to place, I actually kind of went a little bit chalk just in the event that, at the top side of this bracket shakes out, and just the Youngstown State dominates like they've been dominating all year. I have 1 unit on Youngstown State to win the Horizon at plus 180 over on DraftKings. And I'm fine with that. That's like sort of my hedge to my long shot picks here. And then my last pick, and this is my bigger bet in this league. I have 2 units on Cleveland State just to make the championship game at plus 150. So as long as they just kind of are playing for it at the very end, I'm going to have a chance to cash. I'm going to automatically cash on that 2 unit bet at plus 150, and then I'll have a chance at a 0.25 unit long shot at plus 500 for them to win the whole thing. So that's kind of how my bets shaked out there. But yeah, very fun conference tournament. The Horizon, definitely my favorite out of all the conference tournaments, I would say. That them in the Sun Belt, I think, and the Missouri Valley Conference, we'll be touching on here in a bit. But I want to thank you all for checking out today's video on the Horizon League Conference Tournament. And as always, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.